Welcome back, and I think it's been a little bit of time since we got our last episode out. We took a little bit of a short break, kind of like relaxation and
relaxation. What are you talking about? It's been crazy.
It has been crazy, but just getting everyone's schedule together has been tough. So, but we're back and we're excited. And today we got a really cool guest. We got Richard Rafferty. I pronounced that right?
Yes, you did.
And so, those of you who've watched the show in the past, the first question we always ask Rich is, "Do you have any tattoos?"
I do not. No.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Neither do I, as you can tell. Shawn does.
I got a couple here and there, but the thing is that it's just like anything else. They're all a story, and that's what we're here for today. Is capture a really cool story. So, how do we want to approach this one? This is different for me. This is a whole new world.
Yeah.
I'm not a pilot. I don't fly. I mean, I fly for business, but I've never considered this either a hobby or piece of business or anything like that. So I'm anxious to learn more.
Yeah. So I think, we'll just let Rich kind of tell his whole story here, but kind of give you a brief introduction. So you are a pilot and you train other pilots, correct?
Correct. Yes. I'm a flight instructor.
Yeah. And then, that's awesome. But one of the things we really want to highlight here today is you're an entrepreneur. You started a business called Cloud Cowboys. It's a clothing store. So if you want to talk about that a little bit and just kind of, tell your whole story here.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll just kind of start at the beginning. My first flight ever was actually here at Zelienople Airport, my discovery flight, they call it. And I was at Liberty University for business prior to that. And I was really not that happy with what I was learning and kind of felt like it was a bit of an outdated system in the sense of we were reading these textbooks that were kind of old and, the teachers there weren't entrepreneurs. It was just kind of, I was frustrated. Mm-hmm. And so I was actually considering dropping out, and I decided against that because I was researching the highest paying jobs for people without a college degree, and pilot was like number 3 on the list, right? And so that wasn't what made me get into it, but that was kind of what sparked, I guess you could say, sparked the fire. And so when I started really thinking about, pilot, that would be cool. That would be something I could get into. And then it kind of just spiraled from there because I was, I actually had to get surgery on my knee. And so I was home for the semester and I was talking to my parents about all these options. Like, I don't know if I even want to go back. Like, I was taking online classes at the time and I was like, I don't think it's for me. Like, and they were like, just, push through, like you can do it. And I was like, I never really wanted to go in the first place, honestly, but my parents really felt like
the truth comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My parents were, they wanted me to go, and I'm glad that I did now because I really don't think I would have found aviation had I not been there and taken their advice. So, and I love aviation. So back to the spiraling, if you will, the fire igniting. When I'm home and I get surgery on my knee, I take a discovery flight here at Zelienople Airport, and that was it. Like, I just knew from the moment that I left the ground, I was like, this is what I'm doing.
Wow.
I no longer need to worry about whether or not this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is what I need to do. And so from there, it just, okay, how do I do this? Right? Because it's, it's the start of the journey. And, when you get into it, you don't really realize how big of a mountain you're going to have to climb. You just know that, okay, this is, what gear do I need? So I started calling people. My mom had a friend and kind of walked me through the process. And it came down to multiple choices. Staying at Liberty because they had a really good school of aeronautics, which is the path that I ended up taking, spoiler alert, or there was accelerated schools that you could go to and they kind of finish everything in a year. But at the time, when you were going to be an airline pilot, they wanted you to have a college degree to be a captain. So this has recently changed in the last 2 years. But at the time when I was making this decision, that was a large factor. So I decided to stay at Liberty, finished out my training, and then started instructing in Butler once I graduated and kind of finished up the last few bits of my training in the meantime. But
that little spark that you said, hey, when I did this, I just knew. So I have a son and a daughter, right? And actually it's Enzo's birthday today. He's 12 years old. Happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday, Enzo.
Happy birthday, my man.
So the thing is, we just had this conversation the other day about you don't have to have everything spelled out. Sometimes when you start navigating down a certain path, just like you said, it's really not for you. And then all of a sudden, just something clicks. And that little spark is what I think sort of is a catalyst that propels us as entrepreneurs and just different business people. The career path that you start to take, it's pretty cool because you got to really love what you do. And again, I've mentioned this before. I worked in the corporate world for 20 plus years, but I always knew in the background there were things that just I really wanted to do, and just things I enjoyed. So it's fun to hear that piece of that little spark. When you say you just knew, explain that real quickly. Like, what was the feeling? Because I think a lot of people they're going to be able to connect with this.
Yeah. I would say if you've ever taken a discovery flight or been in a small plane, the sensation is pretty powerful, right? When you first lift off the ground and not only are you lifting off the ground, like everyone experiences that in a jet on an airline flight, but when you're actually the one behind the controls and you're controlling the aircraft lifting up into the air, it is quite a sensation. And so when you have that experience and, you've never experienced anything like that before, that's just kind of like, it was almost just like a light bulb going off, or, whatever metaphor you want to use. Right. I mean, it was powerful. And so
that's an incredible analogy though, too, that takeoff and that feeling. And I think it's the same thing as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. You start to feel certain things and then you just know. And even, for the audience, the people that are listening to us or watching us, even if you're in a career now, that doesn't mean you can't pursue these dreams that you have. It's really never too late. But yeah, continue on with your story. I love where you're going with this.
Yeah. So, my background, the first 2 years of my schooling was in business. So as I transitioned into aviation, I got very busy with studying that. But as I became an instructor, I kind of had more free time, right? In the sense of I was working a 9-to-5 job, teaching people how to fly. Sometimes it was more than 9 to 5. It just depends. Like people would be able to book me from 8:30 in the morning to 8:30 p.m. So my schedule was very variable. Sometimes I'd have someone book at 8:30 a.m. and then the next person wouldn't be till 7 p.m. So you just have these weird gaps in your day, and most people fill them going on the phone, just scrolling. Maybe they go to the park or go hiking or something. Some people are more productive than others. I started just editing videos because I realized that I still wanted to do business. My ultimate goal, even though I love flying, is not to be an airline pilot and retire at 65. Mm-hmm. I would like to get in, make some money, invest it, find a way to build businesses, and then get out, and be able to fly for fun, because that's ultimately what I love to do. But I don't want to be chained to the plane. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is, Yeah. And so that's kind of how the whole business thing started. Is I started editing videos, and you guys know this. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now. The amount of viewership that you receive directly correlates to the amount of influence that you have and the amount of people that, monetization, if you will, however you want to call it. So that was something that, just through reading books, I was able to kind of pinpoint exactly the direction that I thought, basically where I thought business was going in the future rather than where it was in the moment. Nobody was really making aviation short form videos, which is something that absolutely blew my mind. Even 2 years ago, I was like, how does this not exist? There's tons of people on YouTube. Everybody was a YouTube flight instructor. That was a thing. People were well established, but there was nobody on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts even that was taking the time to edit high quality videos in that category. Mm-hmm. So I just saw an opening and I filled it. And I'm done instructing now. I actually had my official last day ceremony yesterday. We sign a propeller when we're done and hit the hours, and I did that last night.
Oh, congratulations! That's
Thank
awesome.
You. Yeah, and so it's been 2 years, and so in those 2 years there's so many ups and downs, and I think that's something that hearing from the outside or seeing from the outside, like even in just some videos you would see online, you're not going to hear about the low points, and so. That's maybe something we can talk about, But
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it basically started and got to where we are now, I would say. That's kind of the overview, if you will.
Awesome. And so the short form video content, that translates into Cloud Cowboy, which is a clothing store, correct?
Yes,
So, and
correct.
that's your
I
main
basically
marketing?
was just learning how to market for the last 2 years. And I got it to the point where I was running an online business selling coaching online. So I was
Oh, okay.
basically consulting people who were trying to get into aviation. And even some people that were already in the process, but they needed help on specific things or like which direction to go in their journey, because aviation has so many different options. There's airlines, there's corporate, there's tons of options. You can really do a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different ways to do the training as well. So being able to help people along that journey was the first business that I started online. I had other ones throughout the years, but none of them lasted.
What happened with those?
They were just like, my first business I ever had was I was a DJ in high school. My parents used to own a gym, and they had these big speakers that they didn't even know how to use. And so I figured out how to use them. And so I would just hook them up. I used to play Call of Duty in my room with speakers like pretty much as tall as me, lights out, just bass all the way turned up. It was fun. And but anyway, I learned how to use them, and then I started doing Sweet 16 parties. I was like 15 years old, and my mom used to have to drive me to the parties. And yeah, I would just play music. Like I always have loved music, and I still do. And I think that's actually one of the things that have helped me make these videos, is because TikTok is primarily a music app. So if you can find like new music that people aren't aware of, or old music that people haven't heard in a while that resonates with people, and create a story around it, it's a great way to get viewership. So all those skills have still been morphed and used, but the business died out because when I went to college, I didn't bring the speakers, and it just, but
Yeah, but you gain experience and you learn a little bit about what you really love, or what you really don't like. There was another thing earlier that you said about when you took that first flight from here, and you knew, but once that aircraft leaves the ground, there's no safety net anymore.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with maybe a person exiting a career that they have, where they want to start their own business, where they want to. There's no safety nets. We always talk about that. So kind of a neat little parallel as well.
Yeah, I have always said flight training parallels life so well, because there's no ego allowed in aviation. It's like each lesson you take, you're basically just facing failure. Like each time, there's always going to be, each time you learn something new, there's going to be another thing added to the list that you have to try for the first time, fail at, get instruction on, and then go from there. And so it's so well, like I credit flight training to a lot of the success that I've been able to achieve in like marketing and business, because it's, you have to just kind of just take a few punches, school of hard knocks, and just figure out along the way. Like when I first started making videos, I was actively losing followers. I started posting them on my personal, like the account that I have now that has 100,000 followers is just my personal Instagram. I just started posting just videos about what I was doing as an instructor, working out, flying, whatever. And the people that were previously following me from high school or college, there was a percentage of them that were just like, not about it. They were just like, I'm going to unfollow, It's like, okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, see ya. And then, so they probably see my videos now and are like, what? I like to think about that sometimes.
Good for you.
That's cool.
That like actually gets me so amped up, because you talked about failure, and, Shawn knows my whole story, but ATSAP and, this whole podcasting thing, this is my third or fourth go around at trying a business. And like, I think people, I say this all the time, but people have this mentality that, you start a business and you become successful, and it's like an overnight thing, and you just, it's, you're going to own a business, you're going to make a ton of money. It's like, no, you eat shit for a long time, and like, you have to be willing to fail. And I love how you talk about how in aviation, it's like, you have to try something new, you're going to fail at it, and then you got to learn from it and keep moving forward. Like Shawn said, it's such a great parallel. And I want to touch a little bit on, you had mentioned on earlier in your story how you started in business school. And one of the things that you had kind of said was you realized it was kind of old fashioned and wasn't really with the modern times. And we talked about this on previous episodes where, there's a study that says that in the United States, the business schools in this country teach students how to run the top like 5 or 1% of companies in the United States. And it doesn't teach you about entrepreneurship. It doesn't teach you about how to get a business off the ground, how to be creative, how to be innovative, and things like that. And so I think you have a really interesting perspective because you've come from that background. So if you wouldn't mind kind of talking a little bit how, like, you know, maybe business school helped you in your business now, or how it maybe kind of has changed your thinking.
Yeah. I think one of the issues in the modern system is that people don't actually go there to learn, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just an overview kind of issue with college in general. But I felt like even when I was in the business school, I went to college for a different reason than most people. So I went to Liberty specifically because I wanted to access the knowledge that I did not currently have, right? And I think some people go to college with that, some people don't. Some people go there because they want to just go party and maybe they like need the piece of paper at the end,
sure,
right? And so going into it with the mindset of, no, like I'm paying for these classes. When I sign up, I'm buying the book. I'm going to read the entire book, right? Most people don't read their textbooks. I don't know what your experiences was, but the people that I was surrounded by at college didn't. They were just maybe like they would study a section for a test or something along those lines, but nobody was reading their books like to the amount that each instructor was prescribing. And so that was something that I was like, that's pretty weird. You know, like why are people studying? Why are they paying so much money and then just not like taking in the information that they're supposed to be learning? Like, so I read my entire microeconomics textbook in the dorm on the top bunk every night. And I read the entire thing. And I was like, this just isn't it. I was like, why am I paying? And you know, this isn't anything against Liberty. Like, I actually really liked my time there.
Sure.
I think they had good instructors. Like, this isn't me bashing Liberty. I think it's just a broken system.
Absolutely.
We were reading a book on microeconomics, and the teacher was just going over the parts of the book that we were supposed to be reading on our own. And then we were evaluated on what we read. And some of the questions on the test weren't even from what we read or what he had gone over. And I was just like, what is this? Like, why, like, you know? And so I was just frustrated. And basically, that was kind of a turning point. That was where I got really frustrated because I was like, I can read books on my own, mm-hmm. you know? And so that was really when I had that mindset, like, I can just look up what books we're supposed to be read them on my own and take notes and like figure out what it's trying to tell me without this middleman person. And when it really came down to that, I was like, so why am I here?
Right.
So why am I here? Right. Why am I here? Why am I paying these people so much money just to grade my tests when the questions aren't even on specific sections that we're supposed to be reading? It was just madness, you know.
I feel bad for you that you missed all the partying, though. I mean, that's really an important piece.
Funny enough, I did get a lot of that in as well, mostly during the summers, though. I will say. So I lived in Ocean City, Maryland, which is actually where I got my license, my first pilot license, my private license, and I partied it up, man. We had a good time. I was 21 years old.
I
made up for it in the summers. I was very strategic with when I used my partying. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, my college experience was, you know, similar in that I won't say that I went home and read my textbooks, but I remember my background was computer science. I got a degree in computer science, and you would learn theory in school. So you would learn the basics on, like, you know, here's how computer systems work. Here's how, you know, object-oriented programming works. And, you know, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's a good thing you understand that basis, you know. Mm-hmm. But when I got to the real world, I remember the first thing I did was like, you know, like, oh crap, I actually don't know how to use this language, and I don't know how to build a server. I don't know how to, you know, in other words, I had to like learn on the job.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how I kind of got into app development too, because it was like, I started watching YouTube videos or reading books about app development, and it was like, okay, like there's this whole new thing out there that they didn't really teach you in school.
Yeah.
And it was like, I actually felt at times that I wasted some time. Because it was like, if I would have just spent the last 4 years finding my interests, finding the type of things that I liked and learning about those and teaching myself, like the stuff that I do now, the consulting I do now, I taught myself. You know, school did not teach me how to build mobile apps or design mobile apps. I learned it on my own. You know, I had the theory I learned from school, but I had a similar sort of experience. And it's you know, I think I've said this before. Mm-hmm. If I could see into the future and know, hey, like my career is not going to be sitting at a 9-to-5 job. It's going to be, you're going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to start a business. You're going to do your own thing. I don't know that I would have went to college. I think I would have like found what I'm passionate about, almost like you said about flying, and figure out a way to work into that, you know.
Everybody's on a different trajectory though. You know, I feel like, this is my opinion on the college thing. So you get there and you learn some things. To me, it proves you can complete something. All right. If you end up graduating, get a degree, whatever. If you go back and get your master's, then you have an aptitude for something. There's something more that you enjoy. But the pieces beyond all of that, and college isn't for everybody. The pieces beyond that become your PhD. That's your doctorate. It's the real life grinding that you do, and the experiences you pick up, the people that you meet. You know, you talk about traveling around and things like that. It's you learn about different business acumen, arts, food, culture in different cities and in countries and things like that. That's what, in my opinion, helps you pull all the rest of it together, and that's what shapes you forward. It's all the little things you enjoy. You've got a foundation to start, and then you just move. And like Antonino, you were talking about the failures here and there and things that you learn, different experiences, right? It's the same thing. You're banking all of those experiences, all of those failures. I'm not saying so you can't make the mistake, same mistake, you know, again. It's going to happen. Things are going to happen. It's how you persevere through all of these different things and what you take away from it. But that's my whole little spiel on the whole college experience. You know, I had a lot of fun in college. After I was employed, I went back and got my master's on their dime, which was really nice. It was 100% tuition reimbursement, which was great. And that's something that can never be taken away from any of us, you know. But then there's the real life things that start to happen, particularly too when you get into not only your work life, but then your personal life, your family, and other things that you really need to be considerate of and concerned about, you know, that help shape you as well. You guys will all see that probably at some time too, you know. But this is great. I love learning about different people and what they're passionate about and why. And I love going back. I hate to keep going back to this, but whenever you said about that spark is so important. I can't emphasize that enough, because once you find it, because there might be a lot of people listening go, what the hell is he talking about? What's a spark? What's he talking about? You'll know when you know. That's all I can say about that piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, like, so if you wouldn't mind, kind of tell us about Cloud Cowboy. I always like to ask sort of, how did that name come up? You know, cloud flying, sure. You know, I'm not an aviation guy, but you know, why cowboy?
So a cowboy in aviation was already a term, right? And it basically means like daredevil, someone that kind of, you know, doesn't necessarily skirt the rules, but kind of like, you know, they'll be flying when it's windy. You know what I mean? They'll be flying when most people aren't.
Get
you know
some
what I mean?
turbulence.
Yeah, like nothing outside of the safety. You know what I mean? And within their minimums, we call it personal minimums, right? So it's like you have a certain threshold of which you have experience and you feel safe to fly. And basically, it just means that your threshold is a little stronger than somebody else's, you know? And so the cowboy comes in because that's already a term, right? And that's what it means. And so Cloud Cowboy, my business partner, Max, he went to Leopardi as well, as did my other partner, Ken. We all have our roles, and we can talk about that in a second. But when Max came to visit me in Pittsburgh, Ken was living with me at the time, finishing up his training. I was instructing him. And we were all just hanging out, you know, having fun, catching up. And Max was telling us about this student that he had who used to smoke his e-cig in the plane, and they called him the Cloud Cowboy. And I was like, I love that. Yeah, I was like, that is awesome. I was like, that's a great name. And so I had already been scheming up doing a like merchandise company for aviation, because I felt like no one was really doing that and doing it well. There was a few people that were trying their hand at it, and I thought we could do it as well, if not better, right? And which is kind of how business goes, right? So there was nothing modern is basically what it came down to. There was nothing for people our age that was like in style at the current time, right? It was always stuff that was like just your basic, I'm a pilot shirt. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, pilots looking down on people since 1905 or, you know, it's like, come on. So that was how it started, because I had already been thinking that I wanted to do something along those lines. He came and visited me and my roommate at the time, Ken, talked about the name, and then that kind of sparked it all, because we just started talking about the business. We were like, well, let's just do it. Like, let's figure it out. Let's do it. And that was in 2022. And it took us a full year pretty much to get it off the ground and get it to the point where we felt ready to push forward and announce it and drop it, if you will. Sure. Clothing drops, you know. And so most people probably don't realize that. They don't realize that there was a year of work, meeting every week, having tasks to do, each of us figuring it out. And we made so many mistakes along the way, like so many. We went down so many avenues and rabbit holes that were so unnecessary. We spent a lot of unnecessary time and just wasted time on stuff that we never needed to do, but that's how you learn, right? Sure. So we figured it out, and we you know, found the right things to do, and now we just do those. And I think that's something that has allowed us to grow a lot faster, is that we have three of us, right? You know, they say two heads are better than one. I think there's actually a Bible verse that's like 3 strands make a rope much stronger, something along those lines. And we've kind of just dove into that full force. And I think if I would have tried to do it on my own, there's absolutely no way that it would be where it is today. It would have maybe just been a few T-shirts on my flight instruction website, you know, which is a whole different thing. Like I never wanted to just sell merch. I wanted to have a clothing company. I wanted to have a separate brand from my own that was standalone and successful. And I feel like we have achieved that now, and it's only been really 3 months. So, but again, there was a whole year backtrack that people don't know about. And so it's been a year and 3 months, but you know, from the surface, it's like, these guys are killing it, you know, it's like, but it's like, yeah, you didn't see us in the trenches. You know what I mean? You had no idea.
All those little paths that you start to go down as you're trying to figure things out. Number one, it's not only costly out of the wallet, but it's from a time perspective. You know, we all have the same hours and minutes every single day, but the amount of time you invest in stuff where you're like, what the hell just happened? What did I do?
Yeah.
And that's where I hope by us putting this information out there that it helps other people that are in similar situations cut to the chase a little bit quicker. They're going to have to go through their own series of paths, and they're going to have to learn on their own. But maybe there's something we share with them now that they're able to find some value in down the road.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's what Boss Juice is all about, really.
Love it, man.
Capturing these cool stories. Yeah. The apparel, how do they find this? Where is this available? So
we have a website, cloudcowboy.shop. We also have an Instagram at Cloud Cowboys. Okay. And yeah, that's the easiest way. Most of our stuff is sold on Instagram. We have it linked to our website, and we do all of our marketing primarily on Instagram. Cool. We're looking to expand. We have some things in the pipeline that we're kind of working on, but most of the stuff right now is Instagram related. That's where our community is. Cool. So yeah, that's nice. And it's funny too, because you learn a lot about from a marketing standpoint the demographics of the people that are behind you. You know, with these social platforms and the different tools, you learn so much about the audiences that start to migrate towards you and make purchases and things like that. Yes. Know? That's really cool.
Yeah. Thank you. That is awesome. And so I know you said you have a good following on Instagram. And I know you spent a lot of time prior to starting the clothing store about building up a following and building content. Has that been helpful for the business, or is it? Definitely. Okay. Yeah, I would say on top of just having those skills to be able to use for a separate business, it's also just helped, like, I look at it as like influencer marketing, right? Sure. It's semi-cringe term nowadays, but it works. Whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, you get people that already have eyes on their channel wearing your stuff. I look at myself as just one of the people doing that for Cloud Cowboy. We have others, and that's kind of how I want it. I want it to be like, maybe I'm like kind of the main guy, but there's tons of other people that are wearing the stuff, and that's kind of how I see my role. As far as with my own personal channel, my role within the business is completely separate. Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind kind of talking about that too, because you mentioned you had 2 other business partners
Yes.
in your business. What roles do they play? Are they all pilots as well?
They are all pilots as well.
That's cool.
Yes, the finance guy his name is Ken. He also does sort of like all of our web development and stuff like that. He is a wizard when it comes to figuring out the website, comes to like the back end stuff, like without getting too into like nerdy details, like he's right now building an inventory system for us to be able to have it so we can have basically multiple stores set up at once, and it all tracks from the same inventory system. So just stuff like that I would never have the skill set to be able to do, or if I tried to learn it, it would take me way too long to be able to do it. So that's his primary function, is the finance and the kind of the web, development / maintenance and customer service stuff, because he also does a lot of the shipping.
Gotcha.
And then my other partner, Max, is Max Johnson. Ken Warrender is the other one.
Yeah.
So just so everyone knows, shouts out. Max is the operations guy, as well as design. So he is primarily in control of talking to the designers, talking to the suppliers, getting all that worked out. And he also has a very, very keen eye for design. So he designed our website. He's very in control of like the little things about our Instagram. He designs a lot of the products with also Ken and I's input, but he's kind of the guy that is in communication with the artists and kind of making that happen. So my role primarily is just sales and marketing. I find influencers. I create a lot of the content that we post. Max also has been a big help in that area as well, because I can't do it all on my own. But I come up with a lot of the strategies, and kind of also I'm kind of like in the, I guess you could say, like the head seat, whereas like I'm kind of like, I come up with a lot of the business strategies in the sense of like just like business planning. And then I don't know, you guys know the EOS system? Entrepreneurial Operating System.
So one of my business partners, Jim Gabriel's my uncle.
Yes.
He subscribes to that. He loves that. He's been the past like 2 months been trying to get me to get on board.
You should. It's incredible. It actually probably saved our business, like in the trenches, right? When we started implementing that, that's where everything started to turn around, and we really got a lot of momentum, and we were able to kind of, there was a point in the trenches where things were getting really frustrating, and we were at a point where we weren't wanting to quit, but we were like, this is just, everyone was really busy. Like one of us was at airline training, and I was deep in instructing. Ken was working at a factory, like, and we were all trying to communicate and have meetings, similar to how you guys were saying earlier. It can be a struggle to get everyone to have their schedules line up. But this system basically allows it so that it's not really required for all of you to be in each meeting. You can have it so the tasks are set, you know what you're accountable for, and you move forward. And so that is basically my role, is implementing all of those systems, making sure that we're continuing to move forward, and kind of business planning, and keeping all of us in communication. I'm the glue between the two of them, because I was friends with each of them sort of individually. And as we became partners, they had known each other, and they'd hung out, and they were acquaintances, if you will. But as we became partners, it's kind of been my role to just bridge the gap and make sure that they're both that we're all just kind of moving forward. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome. It's cool. It's fun when you get into these partnerships and businesses, but then there can be this wonkiness too. That includes family and everybody else that might be contributing to your business. But it's always interesting to see how it all plays out. Sometimes, I've been around the business long time, and it's interesting to see how things dissolve, how new things come together. It's crazy. And the cool thing is you'll get to experience this over time.
Yeah.
Nobody has a crystal ball or anything like that. We can't figure out where it's going to go, but we're smart, and we can map things out. And just like how the pandemic a few years ago had changed so many of my clients' businesses, or the way they conduct business. It's just crazy little things that you navigate through. And again, I think that's part of that entrepreneurial bug. It's like we're wired differently.
Yeah.
We're solutions based. We don't have to go through a massive board of directors and all this other tape, if you will, to get things done. We just do it. And that's when you were talking about rabbit holes and paths and things like that. I think a lot of times a board of directors in a bigger company, they've been there oftentimes, and they've seen a lot of different things. When you're a one-person show or a small group, you've got to figure out this on your own, and the timeliness is such a big thing. Yeah. Like you were talking about, a year of planning. This little bug just keeps popping around there. I don't know. You must be interested in this podcast. I love it. It's our mascot.
It's our first viewer.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't had lantern flies popping in here.
I know. Those things are
crazy. Nuts. But anyhow, and they're beautiful though. They're a annoying little beautiful creature. But anyhow, where we go with these things, it's in our businesses, it's great learning experience. It's fun stuff to share, and it's pretty cool. You were just on a trip.
I was.
You were on a flight. How was your flight?
My flight was good. I was in San Francisco. Went there for the Google conference, which was cool. But yeah, so actually shout out to Dylan. So Dylan, you can't see him on camera, but Dylan does all of the video editing, audio editing, sets up our whole thing here. And he's the one who kind of connected us with Rich. He was the one who, he's been texting me like, we got to get you on. He's been following me for a while. But shout out to Dylan, because Dylan, for those who don't know, is actually a pilot as well. I've been trying to get on one of his flights for a while, but we'll see how that goes. But I have to just point out too, this plane behind us. Can you fly one of these things?
I have before. I don't. So you need a specific endorsement to fly a tailwheel plane, and I have flown one twice before, but I have never received an official endorsement. So it's a matter of like a 2-day training session, but it's semi-expensive, so I just haven't done it. Like most of my training has just been to get like the exact things that I need to get to the airline. Sure. Which is about where I'm at now. So. Yeah, the airline pilots make all the money.
Gotcha.
Shouts out Dylan again. So that's kind of, I think like once I have that under my belt, that's when I'm going to kind of branch out and do, like, I really want to get my seaplane certification. That's kind of like the highest one on the list. Tailwheel is just behind it.
Gotcha.
I want to own a seaplane, and I want to land it on the Allegheny River. That's like one of my life goals.
So is a seaplane like one of the ones that can land on water?
Yes, exactly.
That's wild.
Yeah, they have the floats. And you can get ones that have wheels and floats, so you can take it. You could store it at an airport and then land it on the water, take back off, land it at the airport. Yeah, so
I've been fishing in Canada a few times on different lakes, and all of a sudden you'll see one come in, and it's pretty cool. It's fun watching them land and take off. It's really interesting. Yeah, because it's a completely different experience when you see that. I had a question for you. So you talk about the apparel side of the business, but you're an instructor as well. How do they find you as an instructor, and what are you qualified to train them? That aspect of aviation?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm qualified to teach all the way up to the commercial level. So I actually just finished instructing. So, but the last 2 years of my life have been spent teaching people mostly from zero to the private pilot level certification. But I am qualified to also teach instrument training, which is flying in the clouds. And then, after that, you kind of move into the commercial license where that qualifies you to get paid to fly. So now that I've been instructing 2 years, I actually am now qualified to also teach people how to instruct, which is cool. But now that I have my hours, I'm probably not going to continue instructing, or if I do, it'll be in a very different fashion, in the sense of just kind of for fun on the side, something along those lines. So that's kind of what I'm qualified to do. But most of the people that would be listening to this would probably just enjoy watching my videos. My account is just my name, Rich Rafferty, and it has 2 underscores in between the first and last name. So if people want to kind of get a peek into what it's like doing flight training, or kind of in the aviation environment, I think that would be a good place for them to start. And then, I have a lot of different resources for them on that site to be able to go and take the next steps if that's something that they're interested in.
We talk about like college education and books and things like that. And everybody pretty much has a feel from from university to university what the outlay is going to be money-wise. If a person comes to you, and I don't need a specific dollar amount, but what would be a budget? How would a person that wanted to get into this type of training with you, what could they expect to pay to get involved with something like this?
It all depends. Like, that's kind of what I was saying earlier. There's so many different options. If someone's wanting to go to the airline level, then they can expect to spend anywhere from $65,000 to $100,000.
Okay.
And so it's not cheap, right? But the private license, which is just what allows you to take friends and family flying on your own without an instructor, it's going to be about $12,000. I mean, it depends on the person, because it depends how hard you study, how much time you're spending outside of the plane, reviewing your materials, how naturally gifted you are. There's a lot of factors, right? And so the more gifted you are, the more you study, the more you fly, the less amount of money you're actually going to spend, because you'll get to the end faster, learning more and basically just accruing more momentum moving forward towards the end.
Antonino, isn't it cool how we learn things that are way out of our lanes as far as I've never thought about that. I've never thought about flight instructors or costs associated with, that piece of education. Yeah. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, I never thought about that either, because, I thought you go to school and you're given the textbooks or whatever it is, and it's like you don't think about the fact that you need to have a plane to learn how to fly. So, it's super cool. But you had mentioned, too, kind of like your future plans are to kind of get into the airlines. Mm-hmm. So if you don't mind me asking, what are your future plans with like the airlines and with Cloud Cowboy? Where do you kind of see yourself going in the future here? Yeah, so I recently decided that I plan to go to Republic Airways, which is a regional airline. They're based, their main headquarters is in Indianapolis, but they have a base here in Pittsburgh, which is a primary factor of the decision there. I want to live here. I've lived here my entire life outside of the 4 years that I lived in Virginia, and then I lived in Florida and Maryland for a little while as well. But this is where my family is. All my friends. I know Grant Cardone talks a lot about the power base, right? All the network that you've developed, and this is where mine is, and this is where I've kind of invested a lot of time and energy into growing that network. So it's worth it for me to fly for that company, and that's I'm excited, right? And those are the one that I planned to go to all along. So there was some time where I kind of, as I got to the end, I was like, do I really want to do that? What do I want to do? And then I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So that's cool. That's like my next step, right? So I'll go to training for that in November, and it's a 3-month process. So that's I'll be in Indianapolis primarily for the entire 3 months. So I'll miss Christmas, miss Thanksgiving, but it is what it is, Get through to the other side, and I'll be having a much higher quality of life. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of just an investment of time, and it'll pay off pretty short term. So I'm excited about that. And then as far as past that, I really don't know. I know I will be there for at least 3 years via my contract. So after that, it's really just kind of all up in the air, if you will, no pun intended. Some pun intended. Yeah, so I'm not sure. But as far as Cloud Cowboy goes, I definitely 1,000% plan to continue doing it. I think we have a ton of momentum right now. I do not plan on stopping. And so when I'm gone at training, I don't know exactly how much I'll be able to do, but I have 2 partners that should be able to at least hold down the fort. And then if I have to put out a fire or 2 here or there, so be it. It might slow our growth a bit, but I think we'll be able to continue on the path we're on. We have enough steam momentum right now that we should be able to ride right through that. And then out on the other end, we're going to be smooth sailing, because I'll have – it sounds weird. I'm going to have a higher paying job and a more serious professional career, but I think I will actually have more time on my plate.
Which is nice.
Yeah, instructing is a much lower paying job, but the schedule is much more demanding. So it's just one of those things. So you're almost paying dues, right?
Sure,
you're paying dues. So.
As we start to wrap up this interview on this – gorgeous Labor Day weekend, 2023. What words of wisdom do you have? Antonino usually phrases up this question about, what would you want to share? What one-liner would you give to somebody that you just got smashed with
just
that
kidding.
book?
Before we get to that, 'cause I know we're kind of coming up close on time
go
here.
for it.
I have one question
Okay.
that and Dylan's gonna roll his eyes at me because I asked him this before, but I'm obsessed. The UFO question, man. Have you seen? Have you seen?
Yes.
Like, dude, see, look,
He's walking away.
He,
Dude, I was literally on the way here listening to Joe Rogan's like newest podcast.
Mhm.
It has I forget the guys. It's two guys' names that
Right.
have been like in the game forever talking about UFOs. I was actually growing up, I was like, maybe, I don't know. And then as I started listening to more stuff about it, and the government started releasing these declassified documents, I was like, there's something here. This is interesting. And then, I watched a few documentaries and stuff, and I was kind of like, yeah, this probably exists, right?
Sure.
And then recently, actually like 2 weekends ago, I was at my cabin, and my cabin is in the very remote part of the woods in Pennsylvania, and most people probably don't know this, but
You saw Bigfoot.
I'll get to that. Basically, it's one of the best places in the country to view the stars at night. You see more stars than anywhere, pretty much. There's a few other remote places, but it's one of the best in the country. And so my cabin is pretty remote in the woods. We turned all the lights off as the sun started going down. Everything. We didn't look at our phones. We had no lights on at all. We had a small fire, and we saw. I don't even know what to describe it. I mean, we were looking up there. It basically just looked like stars moving around, but they were in specific formations. They would come. So I know what a shooting star looks like. I know what a satellite looks like. I know what a plane looks like. We saw all of those. This was not that. Okay, so we were looking up at the sky, and we were seeing stars moving and coming together, doing little spirals, and then flying back out in formation over a specific area. And we probably saw it for about an hour, and we were just in complete awe. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. It was amazing. And then after the hour was up, nothing. Just shooting stars, just planes, just satellites.
That's
no
crazy.
more of what looked like. It looked like they were just doing maneuvers. Like, seriously. It looked like it was the Space Force just like practicing some fighting maneuvers or something.
That's wild.
I don't know if it was like, I mean, there's probably skeptics will say it was like a comet show or,
Yes,
but it was so specific that we were moving. They would come out of view and back in. It was unreal.
Antonino, that has to be one of the best questions since we've started doing the podcast.
I know. I've been
You just felt it.
obsessed with that topic because like I know nothing about aviation, and I've kind of talked to Dylan about this, and he always just like tells me to like leave it alone or whatever. But the thing that I was telling Dylan this too. The thing that interests me so much is that like I'm not saying that there's aliens or whatever. Like I don't know about that, but I was like, there's the videos that I've seen of like these UFOs or UAPs, whatever they call them.
Yes.
Like the very little knowledge I know about physics, like they don't abide by the laws of physics. Like to me, I'm like, why aren't we talking about the fact that like someone, whether it's another country, whether it's us, knows physics that we don't know, that like they aren't teaching in school, And so I had to ask because I've heard some stories of pilots seeing things up in the clouds, and
They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know there's an alternative to oil and fuel.
you can power everything by
we
water.
can go pretty deep down the rabbit hole in this one, but yeah, it's I don't know what we saw. It's unidentified, right? I don't know what it was. I've never seen anything like it, but I think there's pretty good, like if people really want to get into it, like there's a lot of actual credible evidence coming out now that UFOs exist. Not necessarily that aliens do, but that there's something out there, either like you said, from another country or from whoever, that the U.S. definitely has it. I definitely think that they're just like not telling us. Like they're like, oh yeah, we don't know what this is, but it's like you're gonna see the next war that happens, the next big war, like it's gonna be fought with these aircraft. It's gonna be wild. Yeah,
absolutely. And I agree with you. I think that we definitely have. I think that's part of the reason why it's so like hush hush is that. The things that I've seen, like those videos, like you wouldn't want to disclose that to a foreign entity. Hey, like, look what we can do.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
agreed.
I think it's crazy, but
good question.
Yeah, I appreciate you entertaining that because it's like I've been deep down the rabbit hole with that stuff.
I wasn't that into it, and then I saw that like that happened, and I've just been like deep into it now because I'm like, what did we see? Like, I've just been like watching everything I can find on it because I'm like, this was just one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. So
yeah, and it's just like, have you seen the one with like I think it's like the USS Nimitz or whatever with like they call it the Tic Tac one.
Yes.
Where like the Navy fighter pilots like tracked or whatever. I just thought it was so cool, well, not cool, but kind of scary and interesting how it like knew their waypoint, or I can't remember what the aeronautic term that they used. It was like, you know, it knew that like the rendezvous point was, and it would like go there. I thought that was like that's weird too. That's a whole other technology as
There's
well.
a lot of stuff like that. It's pretty wild. Yeah, it's a good topic to get into for sure.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have another whole episode just on that. Dylan's telling me no, but
shaking his head.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to see like if I'll see them from the plane, like right, because like right now I just fly like the highest I've ever flown is like 10,000 feet, like in a piloting myself. I've flown in obviously airliners plenty of times high up, but I'm interested to see like spending a lifetime high up in the air, like I'll probably spot something. Like if they exist, like I'll probably see them. So I'll keep you guys updated.
Yeah. You see something, send me a text.
So there's more coming from the Cloud Cowboy.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, that's the future of Cloud Cowboy. It's no longer about whether or not it's going to be rough airways. It's going to be whether or not you're flying around UFOs.
That's what they used to call Steve Miller, man, the space cowboy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But I think we're.
How about the word of wisdom? What do you want to tell these people? If you had to give them one line about being an entrepreneur or your whole
one word of advice. Yeah.
I would say just start. Just go. Just do it. Figure it out, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it, but you're going to learn so much, right? And that's not like some profound, like that's just, people have probably heard that before, but I think you hear that and you think you understand that, but it's like, then you're still like, oh, well, I got to get the paperwork to the government first. And I got to, find the right partner. It's like, no, like just do it. Yeah. Like just every day, find one thing to do and push the ball a little bit forward. And then you'll be surprised at the end of a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, how far you've been able to continue generating momentum, and everything snowballs, right? That little ball turns into an avalanche within a decently short amount of time if you just stay consistent and you're disciplined and you just keep going. But you gotta start the ball somewhere, right? And so
I love that.
Yeah.
Start. I mean, that's again, I used the word spark earlier. It's the same thing. You can come up with 10,000 excuses or reasons why it's not the right time. You don't have this, you don't have that. You got to start. I 1,000% agree with that.
Yeah. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Rich, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Seriously.
I had fun.
This was a lot of fun. And I wanted to thank the Zelienople Airport for, allowing us to host this out here. This is cool.
Yeah. Great spot. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
Good luck with everything. And we do want to we'll do a follow-up down the road.
Yeah. About the UFOs, at least.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Part 2, UFOs.
Yeah. All right.
But
hey, everybody enjoy the Labor Day weekend and beyond. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.